Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for our next summit special. Um, Today's topic, improving customer service and satisfaction. And I had the pleasure of being joined with, by with Brenda Haney, Solid Waste Director, City of Lubbock, Texas, and Michael Shaw, Director of Public Waste for the City of Kansas City, Missouri. Welcome to you both, and thank you for joining. All right, so our topic today, improving customer service and satisfaction. But before we jump into that, I thought I'd give both of you the opportunity to tell us a little bit about your organization, what some of your goals are, maybe why you look to Rubicon to incorporate into your solution, anything along those lines. Brenda, if I can start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Fred. Glad to be here today. So I'm the Director of Solid Waste for the City of Lubbock, Texas, and I had a little bit of experience with Rubicon in my previous life. I've been here about 4 years now. And when I got here, I hear a lot of the same problems that I've heard, other places. I've got paper route systems. My data is all on paper route sheets, and we're having to duplicate our handling of that. We don't really know if we've got routes balanced. And so our goal was, let's find a way to get that data and see if we can start to streamline our process a little bit. So that was really the impetus for looking at a system like a Rubicon, was to get us out of the era of paper and to be able to have some of that real-time traffic management, if you will, so that we could see what was going on in our operation on a day-to-day basis and be able to get good quality data on balancing our routes, understanding really where the tricks and troubles were for our operators. So that was kind of the impetus behind the investigation into Rubicon.
Okay. Michael?
Oh, wow. Fred, I like to say, well, first of all, my name is Michael Shaw. I'm the Director of Public Works for the City of Kansas City, Missouri. And I would say it's about being intentional. I love to be intentional about what we do. I like to be able to know that we do something intentional, we have an intentional results. And so with that being said, very much like Brenda was saying, how do we make sure we're providing that high quality service? We're doing what we say we're going to do. And not only can we say it, but we can prove it. And so understanding that, and then going out and finding a work management system that allows our team to work to do it the best way that they know how, in collaboration with the software, allows us to provide just an exceptional service. We've seen citizen satisfaction numbers go through the roof because staying on time and on task. There's been efficiencies gained, all that good stuff. But what really drove me was being very intentional about the outcomes. How can we control the outcomes of what we're doing, and being intentional about it. And so that's what drove us to Rubicon.
Let me pick up on that. Your citizen satisfaction. How do you measure that? And did you see movement after you implemented Rubicon?
Yeah, so our citizen satisfaction is done by a third party. We do it on a quarterly basis. And once we implemented Rubicon, we saw citizen satisfaction increases. We can see it in different parts of the city. Kansas City is a big city, 320 square miles. We have 15 collection zones. We do 3 a day, 3 collection zones a day, 5 days a week. So we saw in our Northland area, we saw satisfaction go up to 80%. It increased by like 60% increase in satisfaction in our north collection areas. In our south collection area, we saw an increase, but overall, the entire city, it was I think 17% overall in the entire city between all 3 collection zones. And so that was very telling. So we set a new standard for service. So.
And Brenda, do you have a similar means of measuring customer satisfaction?
Boy, I wish I did. I really wish I did. And so, but where we've been able to kind of monitor that that satisfaction, if you will, is really in monitoring the calls that come in. So we're still not a full-scale operation, so we're still working in a pilot, but what we're able to tell is when we're using the phones, when we've got the Rubicon system up and running, what we're seeing is real good completion in those areas, real good capture of the data, real clear indication of what we've done and where we've done it. And so we can address our customers much more directly and accurately, which we can't do in the system. It's a great side-by-side comparison, right? So when we don't have the system up and running is where we really struggle to be able to provide that information that our customers are asking of us, or to be able to give them a good quality response into what's going on. So.
Okay, thank you. So I know we were talking earlier about paper and moving away from paper routes. Talk to me a little bit about, and Brenda, let's start with you, especially since you are in a pilot. So half of your, or some portion of your operations are digitized, running Rubicon, and you have your other part of the operation that's still running as you were before Rubicon entered the picture. You probably can give us a perspective of the before and after, because you're living it day in, day out. So let's talk about the digitized effort and the importance of that, and sort of the benefits you receive from that, and how it compares to how, business as usual before Rubicon.
I think it's a lot easier to get the data in the digitized system, right? So my operators are very engaged when they have the Rubicon system operating in their truck. And we move it around purposely so that we're getting good data across the community. But they seem to be really, really engaged, and sometimes getting them to grab the piece of paper that they carry around with them and write down the note, or let us know what's going on specifically in some area just doesn't happen. But to reach up and punch a button is a much simpler application. And so we get much better engagement. And then we've got those overachievers that we all have seen in this operation, right? That just really want to show everything that's going on their route so that we have a real clear understanding of it. So those folks are just incredibly invaluable to our system because they're just capturing so much information for us on a day-to-day basis that I couldn't possibly think of trying to get it all into the appropriate piece of paper, and then being able to track and record that information and make it available for everyone to see, which is a great thing about the digital side.
Yeah. If I could just ask you to elaborate a little bit more, take us beyond the exceptions that the drivers are capturing. What do you do with that? How does that help you with other parts of the city, other departments within the city?
Yeah. So, we're not really tracking other things for the other parts of the city. Most closely, we would be working with our code enforcement group. So when we've got those illegally dumped items or those bulky items, we're being able to monitor and indicate where all of those items are as we're going along. And that gives us a real clean list that we can then turn over to our codes group and say, hey, we need to go make some communication to this neighborhood and really talk to them. And it gives us an opportunity to kind of work hand in hand with them and get a good sense of what's going on in that community. What are some of the impediments to that part of the community using the tools that actually are available to them, as opposed to just illegally dumping items in the alleys that we're servicing. So, it gives us, I think we'll maybe talk about it a little bit later, but some of that targeted outreach gives us a great opportunity to know where we've got those underlying issues. And then let's look deeper into that area and see what we need to do. Is it a problem? Are there issues, that people just don't have a resource? People don't understand what the system is, or people are on the outskirts of town and it's really not them, but they're being, their alleys are easily targeted from people coming in from outside in the county area. So it gives us a chance to kind of peek a little further in the tent and get a better idea of really what's happening.
Well, I'm definitely going to come back to the communication aspect of knowing, but let me go back to Michael. Let's talk about the benefit after you digitize your operations in Kansas City. And if you could, because I know you've done some integration work, talk about how as I mentioned to Brenda, how do you then communicate and use that information elsewhere within the department, other departments within the city? So if you could touch on the integration and how that helps you with just obtaining information via Rubicon.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of always, Rubicon is a work management system. I mean, it helps it helps the guys and women that work in our agency do their work effectively. They're effective at what they do. And so as they're going out there doing their work, it records a lot of information, a lot of data. And then different departments or different areas in our organization can utilize that data. And so we've integrated our outputs into multiple platforms so that we're actually pushing information out to other work groups in our department and in the city. And what that helps us do is it helps us identify to be more nimble and to be more responsive on addressing issues quicker and also without having necessarily for people to file complaints as well, right? Because we're being proactive. We're actually working once and doing multiple things when we do the work. So to the extent that we go and it's seeming like, well, we're just picking up trash. Well, not only are we picking up the trash, we're actually gauging how much litter or illegal dumping is out there. We're also gauging the potholes that are out there. We're also gauging the how much trash is out there, how much participation, and who's using our services. We're also gauging the efficiency by which our vehicles are operating. We're also gauging the quality or any type of issues that are going on with our trucks. A lot of times they'll say, our truck did something, and well, we can't say what conditions were you under at which time your truck did this thing. Rubicon captures all of that. So we have mechanics that are actually back at the office and they're reading codes that are coming off the truck. There may be a code that got shot out. Driver doesn't even know it happened, but the mechanics are looking at it and say, oh, this is a troubled code. We need to get that truck in and do some preventative maintenance on that truck before it becomes a problem. All of those things lead to production efficiency, which is more importantly, effective. So once we learned how to be more effective by using this Rubicon system, we became efficiently effective at a high level, and now we're sustaining that. Potholes. I mean, we have some of the technology integrated with Rubicon that does AI that identifies potholes. So now my street maintenance teams aren't just driving up and down streets trying to find potholes. We know exactly where to go. We can be more effective at going out and getting those potholes. And then that data is going right into our asset management system that keeps our OCI scores updated on a very regular basis. So there's a lot of integrations in a bigger picture that goes on, but Rubicon is sort of that first layer of data gathering that actually helps us be really intentional about our outcomes.
I want to touch on the efficiencies that you mentioned. Can you ballpark sort of the savings that you've realized in your department? And if you can stray outside of your department, maybe citywide, do you have a feel for what sort of savings you're realizing because of the efficiencies you just mentioned?
Well, in trash collection, in just trash collection by itself, we saw well over $2.5 million savings in trash collection alone. Just really reduce staff required to actually go do the work. And then other areas like in street maintenance, I mean, we're actually out. We're short 170 positions, but we're performing higher than we did when we were fully staffed. Because now we're intentional about where we're going. We have less dead time and more on route time and getting things done. So those positions, we kind of looking back, it was like, hey, do we really need all these positions? because the other part of it is in Kansas City, it snows. And of course, we also use Rubicon in snow removal, which, was a huge leap for us in the snow removal sector of our business, utilizing Rubicon. And we saw, satisfaction increase, double-digit satisfaction increases in snow removal once we instituted Rubicon in that as well. So, which also led to cost savings, because again, we have 170 positions or so, or FTEs that, we don't need all 170 of them. We probably need a good 80 to 100 of them, but maybe not all 170. So we're seeing that production. We're seeing utilizing this equipment, we're seeing that production, less those staff. So that's a huge thing.
Okay, thank you. Brenda, same question to you. And then I do realize we'll caveat this because you are running a pilot, you're not full city. But once again, once you see the vision, and when you do go full city, can you see how having your entire operation equipped with Rubicon will sort of drive the efficiencies and the savings that we're talking about here?
Absolutely. And I think, some of it is, Michael was spot on. I mean, you're grabbing that data without even making any efforts at it, and it's pushing it out to wherever you need it to go. You can send it to where you need that data to go. What I have observed is when we've got somebody working under the Rubicon system versus when they're not working under the Rubicon system. I don't know if it's the sense that, I'm watching or somebody else is watching, but they are much more effective in how they're doing their job. They're much more purposeful, and to steal one of Michael's words, they're very intentional. They are on target, on task, and there's less of the maybe what you'll see with some folks is less of the playing around, where we park a little extra longer for our break, or maybe we take a few more breaks than we normally would, just because we know that somebody's keeping an eye on it. When we get the field supervisors, when they're engaged with it more actively, they're engaged, but when they got much more engaged with it, then we really saw that effectiveness on our route collections really drive up. We are also in the process of siting and designing a transfer station. So we know we're going to be cutting some routes because we've got, we're driving locally as opposed to driving, an hour to get to the landfill and back. So this will give us that opportunity to really streamline those routes, using the data that we're pulling out of Rubicon right now to really see it's, when you talk with an operator, they always have the biggest, baddest route that has the most debris on it, and they work harder than anybody else. And I believe all of them, except for now I actually have the data to support those arguments. And so we can, there's so many factors that go into routing, and you can't, it doesn't seem, it's really hard to capture all of it effectively day after day. And having this system really allows us to do that. It normalizes a lot of those other, we're not just looking at miles or stops or loads or, that's already, kind of covered in the Rubicon system, right? But the other thing is it takes those other pieces of data that I don't have to try to capture. Because it addresses all of that when I just see that somebody is effectively running down this route, and they're not playing around and they're, staying on task, then I know maybe there is something with that waste stream that's different in their area that requires them, an extra hour to do their route than maybe somebody else. Maybe I do need to shave some stops off of this one and shift them over this way. So those are the things that are really hard to capture when you're trying to do these route analyses. And then we just don't have to mess with that with this. So, I anticipate, I've already tipped my hat a little bit with our council that when we got the transfer station, I didn't tell them about the Rubicon system. I was holding that card. I was holding that ace up my sleeve that we would probably see no less than a 40% efficiency gain. Just by having that local transfer station. I think when you start to combine that with full-scale operation of the Rubicon system, streamlining those routes, making sure that we're really addressing things accurately, then we're going to get a 40 to 50% efficiency. Much like Michael indicated, I haven't been fully staffed, consistently for a while. This gives us an opportunity to really assign the resources where we need them. And then we can really do some thorough evaluation of what's going on with the routes and how many of those positions do we really need, and how many of those can we shave or repurpose for other opportunities inside the department.
Well, let me stick with you, and I want you to talk about the people aspect of this.
Yeah.
You talked that you rotate the use of the Rubicon devices with your drivers. What does that look like? What does that feel like when today is the day that I'm not running with Rubicon, or today is the day that I am running with Rubicon? How do the drivers feel about that?
I think most of them prefer to have the system because it just takes a whole level of burden off of them. They don't have to mess with so many other things. They can just get in the truck, do their route, and everything else is taken care of, right? They don't have to worry about completing the piece of paper. They don't have to make sure it gets turned in. They don't have to, go to their supervisor at the end of the day and say, here are the problems I encountered. It makes it really easy when they're picking up extra stops, so those are already pushed to them and it's addressed, and they don't have to think about it. We've got some folks that are directionally challenged. So when it's just on the phone in front of them, then we don't have to worry about them trying to figure out where their extra stops are. And we can also, when with the field supervisors engaged, then they can make sure that if somebody's got an issue going on and they're not going to be able to get to, say, an extra stop, or there's something that's happening on their route or with their truck, then they can start to repurpose some of that. So the with and without is a dramatic difference. It's not all rosy. So don't misunderstand me. There are always going to be those people. We all have those people that want to be naysayers. They don't want to use the technology. We got it. We had the camera system working in partnership with it right off the bat. And the very first thing I see is a yellow safety vest hanging over the camera. And it was one of my supervisors. And I was like, well, that's going to be a real problem for you if you're not going to be setting the example. And I'm like, it's not about, I'm not using this so that I can spy on you during the course of the day. Because please remember, I have a job that doesn't involve sitting behind my computer, watching what you're doing all day long. That means I'm not doing my job. So once you have that education and that communication with the team, and they really understand the purpose behind this is really to help them and to empower them and to protect them, then you get a lot more buy-in. And the side-by-side comparison of the quality of the data, the accuracy of the data, the information that you get on the route is just so dramatically different.
Okay. I like to tell a story about my earliest trips. One of the earliest trips I took when I joined the company was to the Kansas City launch. So, Michael, I already know what the before and after is. So why don't you answer that question? Talk a little bit about what your drivers thought about Rubicon and where they are today.
Yeah, I mean, trash drivers are a different breed, man. I mean, these guys, you can't tell them how to do their job. They know how to do their job. They've been doing it for 30 years and 20 years at this. And, I created that. I did this. I did that. And that's all true. It's all true. And again, I said, but you guys are gonna, use this as a tool. Let's forget about the fact that it's technology. Let's just add another tool to your toolkit. And so it was tough. It was tough sledding a little bit there, right? But the leadership comes from the top down, and we say, this is what we're gonna do. Today, they won't even go out in the field without their Rubicon. That's what they call it. Where's my Rubicon at? Where's my Rubicon? And they completely understand, because it's very simple to use, right? It's essentially a cell phone for them. It's like although it's a tablet, but it's like it functions much like a cell phone. That's something they're familiar with. very few clicks that they have to do their job, but it helps them see what they're doing, how they're doing. And for them, they're just like, hey, this is too easy. Now you can see I've done what I said I did, and no one can say I didn't do it. And so for their moral victory of being, they're very prideful about their outcomes. And so when they can show that, yes, I did exactly everything that I did, and my routes are clean, and I've done this tool gives them those bragging rights, right? It gives them the ability to brag about it. But today, you wouldn't stand a chance if Rubicon isn't working. Everybody's a power user here in Kansas City. I mean, they know how to go out and do it, and they want to be Rubicon trainers and train other people how to use Rubicon, and they'll complain, oh, you didn't use this route assist right, because if you did this, you did that. Now push the button here, you just hear it. The radio chat is completely different. So it's actually kind of funny now today. Well, especially the newer guys that are coming in, and we got our veterans on Rubicon, and we actually saw the same or similar thing in snowplows. Kind of how we got into the snowplow deal, right? We had some trash people had to go push snow. They wouldn't do it without their Rubicon. It was like, I'm not using no paper map to go do this. And, they was like, these paper maps don't make sense. It's nighttime. I can't see it. I tell you what, I'll just push my entire trash route in a snow truck, and we'll call it square. So we put a bunch of trash guys together in certain areas and took over a big swath of areas. So they just went out and they plowed all this stuff, and man, it was fantastic. And so the other side of the house, our street maintenance team, has never seen this before. So they're sitting there watching these guys do this work, and they're like, man, they're killing this thing. They don't even plow snow. But that's what kind of got us going in and putting our whole snow operation on that. And what was amazing is we took people who have never driven a plow truck before, even plowed snow, and said, all you got to do is, as they say, hey, my lines are turned, my lines are all green now. When they're turning their lines green, their streets green, they know they've been past that. I mean, we're measuring, how long it takes them to go do things, how much salt is being used, so we can manage all of those different things. You got areas where water main breaks, or there's a bad area, real bad intersection that has got hit up. We know that in advance, and we'll go actually and pre-salt that area before a snowstorm comes, so that we make Kansas City passable. And even from a satisfaction perspective, even in snowplow, like I said, it went up. But what's more amazing, I was actually with the mayor of Kansas City, and a lady called. I mean, it's been snowing for about 8 hours, and it's supposed to snow nonstop for about 13 hours. We're 8 hours into the snowstorm, and a woman came and said, you haven't plowed my street yet. And so the mayor was like, man. And I said, Mr. Mayor, we've changed the expectation. We can get everywhere within 10 to 12 hours now. Before, that wasn't the case. We weren't even doing residential streets. Now, we're doing this entire first pass, if you will, curb to curb within 10 to 12 hours. And we're doing it with people who have never plowed before. So imagine what happens once they get experience. The second season went even better. Right. And so we're heading into our third season using it. We're excited. We're laid back. Now we have every route full. We have people that aren't even in public works volunteering to plow snow just because it's too easy. They want the overtime now because it's too easy. So making a big difference.
Yeah, I'm looking at the title of our segment today, Improving Customer Service and Satisfaction, but I'm quickly realizing from these two anecdotes that you also have internal satisfaction that you've seen an increase in that with your employee base.
Absolutely.
Morale definitely goes up. And I would think that, when we look at customer satisfaction, customers are satisfied when we do what we say we're going to do, right? And we measure that on a quarterly basis. We look at how long does it take us to resolve a complaint? What type of complaints are we giving? So now we're managing exceptions and not the rule. right? Which is very important in providing basic services. And so, I mean, we have just launched an AR that has everything to do with how we manage customer service and customer service satisfaction related to how fast we get things done, and all of that. Now in public works, because we've drastically changed solid waste and snowplow, we're, every aspect of public works, everyone's wanting us to have the same type of response. Well, we don't have Rubicon everywhere yet, but it's important to have these type of work management systems in place that gather data, that communicate across to one another, and helps everybody be more intentional about what they're doing every day. Citizen satisfaction increases by our response to getting things done on time and on task. And this software helps us do that.
Okay. Brenda, let me come back to you. You cracked the door when we were talking about data and how you're using that. And today, instead of maybe doing a full city campaign, you're able to target your communication efforts. So let me ask you to go back to that and go into a little more detail about how you've seen that you've been able to do that in the time that you've been working with Rubicon.
Yeah, I mean, it's really it's specific to our bulk. We do alley collection, which I don't really recommend, because it really reinforces some of the bad behavior of our citizens. It's out of sight, out of mind. Pardon me. And so what I can find is I can see where the pockets, we're tracking the bulk items they're illegally dumped. We don't have a bulk collection program right now. We do it as a courtesy, and we're trying to, eventually I'm hoping to be able to steal some of these people that we're not going to need running a trash route and repurpose them to do a dedicated bulk collection program. This is, I'm starting to capture some of this data right now, so we kind of get a sense of what we're looking at too. But what this allows us to do is just tag where all of those stops are. And then I can look at that on a map and, and get a sense of what part of the community is this? Is it spread all over town? Is it in new areas and it's a different type of waste? Is it in the older parts of town and, where is it? What's going on? And so it allows me then to go and grab my marketing person, my education person, and say, let's do some outreach. Let's go over and do some targeted outreach that explains, here are your options for these types of items. And none of them involve throwing them in the alley and leaving them for us. It amazes me. They call and yell at us because we haven't picked it up. I'm like, that's not our job, you could be fined for illegally dumping those items. So what it does is it gives us that chance. And what we can do then is we can go in, we can go into that neighborhood and say, hey, here's a brochure. We can leave that on each of the doors that says, here's how to do this. It doesn't look like we're picking on any one person. It just looks like we're doing this broad education. When you see it for several blocks, then what it is it's just us out doing our job, right? We're just out doing this targeted education. It allows me, if I'm been invited to go to, say, a town hall meeting with one of my council people, and I happen to be I'm always a topic of conversation at an unsolicited town hall meeting, right? It's just we're just going to talk about life of the city, right? It always is a topic, trash collection. And so this allows me to come armed with a little more information, and then I can then prepare and give really targeted communication in that town hall. I don't need to cover all of the services. Here's where we're having a problem, so let me direct my communication to address this conversation.
Let me ask you that. What is it about those neighborhoods? Is it a language barrier? Is it just a lifestyle? What is it that it's driving the need for that communication?
Yeah, and it's a little bit of everything. It depends on what part of town you're in. Some of it is a language issue. Some is, again, I mentioned earlier, we get out on the outskirts of town and you get up against county residents that have no services. And so they'll bring material in and drop them somewhere at the closest alley they can get to. Some is people just don't know what services are available to them, and so I'm not against shining a really bright light on bad behavior, because then it draws attention from other people that may not be participants, but it will prohibit them from following suit, right? So if they know that their neighbors are being called out, or that we've gone out showing these, sofas and mattresses that we don't know where they came from. I don't have any way of that, being able to figure that out, but I know it's there and I can use it over and over in a talk or a presentation. People don't want to be shamed. And so it's just a good way to reinforce the message. Here are what our options are. So, there's a ton of different things. And folks are always, it's like, oh, I don't have a truck. Well, okay, but any of the big box stores that sell you hardware will rent you a truck for an hour. So that $20 rental fee is a heck of a lot better option to drive that stuff over to one of our attended facilities than, say, a $500 illegal dumping fee is. So it's really just making sure that people know what resources are available to them and what the implications are of doing the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. And so we see a little bit of everything. And that's one of those things, you got to peel that onion back a little bit. What's going on in this community? Is it a part of the community that really struggles with just some basic needs? And maybe what we need to do is just do some targeted help for them. They're probably not buying new sofas if they're that impoverished. So, it's not like they illegally dumped that sofa out in the alley because they didn't get a new one to replace it with. So, it's somebody else that's kind of that's picking on that neighborhood because they know they can get away with it. So that's a little harder audience to reach.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, I'm actually going to pivot here, and I'm going to go back to something you said rather than have you address targeted communication. Talk to me about the big picture. You said, you've moved from waste into snow operations, and now you set an expectation citywide. And what you said was, we don't have Rubicon everywhere. So this is your big picture opportunity. Big picture, where do you see taking Rubicon? Where do you see a work management system helping you in other areas of the city?
Absolutely. So one of the areas is permitting inspections, right? Rubicon is kind of broke down into really two systems, right? You have point-to-point services, and then you have route services, right? Where it's just routing, or what we call fixed services, right? So the fact that you can do those two different things, and you can do those turn-by-turn routing, you can do point-to-point, all of that, the widget just changes. And so when you can actually identify, let's say, where the next space I want to take it to is utility cuts. In utility cuts, one of the things that we see commonly in utility cuts is you'll have somebody, in our little pre-meeting, Brenda had brought this up. There's all these different people that come into her alleys and, put in new services, whether it's internet or electric, gas, or whatever. They're always cutting into our streets. And when you cut into the streets, you have this thing called degradation. And degradation is where it impacts the quality of the infrastructure over a period of time. So once it was done, it was at 100, but by the time they come and cut into it, now it's 70. And they got to pay for that damage. How do you know that that's done that way? Well, actually, Rubicon can help us do that. And how they help us do that, how we can do that is by putting in a point, and how we already have integrated our camera system with Rubicon as well. We can actually identify that location and say, X company came in and did a cut here. We know that from our last analysis, this spot was 100. When we come back every 2 years and do analysis, we can sit here and say, now this space is 80. I can say company X, you have degraded that space by 20 points, and you're under warranty. You got to come back and repair that. That saves the city thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, in infrastructure repair, maintenance, saves taxpayers. It puts the burden back on the person who created the problem. When you have a city with 6,000 lane miles across Kansas City, it's hard to keep up with this. I mean, we're at 15-year cycle right now of getting all of our roads repaved, or, you know, I don't know, 15-year life cycle. And that's costing us every bit of $45 million a year just doing that. And then you have utilities that come in and cut your streets and then act like, hey, I had to get under here. Not a problem. But we have ways to track and manage that now through our asset management system. And Rubicon is actually helping us do parts of that. Now I want to add in other parts of that asset management. The same thing can be said for bridge repair work. Putting in a geolocation, put a pin on an expansion joint and where that is. As those trucks come by and they take those pictures, we can monitor those expansion joints, and then we can measure those, reduce the amount of time where people actually have to physically go out there and go do that, and we can be more efficient with our time, and still go specifically where the resources are needed, because resources are limited, but we can be more intentional about what we're doing and getting those results that we need. And we can actually manage and measure what we're doing over time and see that degradation, whether it's an expansion joint, whether it's a utility cut or whatever it is. We can do that through Rubicon. So that's an area where we look at. We're also looking at inspections from an enforcement perspective of doing photographs. And then once things are done, it automatically goes back to the truck to be collected. It's all seamless and things just happen, you know, just bang, 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 bang. Everybody does what they do. They see it the way they need to see it. So it's easy for them. But we're all communicating and we're getting things addressed in a very timely and very efficient manner, because we'll know exactly where the hang up is. And with performance measures wrapped around what they do when they get a call or a complaint, as we try to manage, you know, how we provide the quality of service we provide, it allows us to be more intentional. It allows us to really get things done in a quicker way from beginning to end. So we're looking to really expand Rubicon's reach within our Public Works Department. And I know other departments outside of Public Works are wanting, you know, are talking about Rubicon now, because they see how much efficiencies we've gained. And so they're like, well, could they do this? Could they do that? I'm like, look, if it's fixed route or point to point, they can do it. They just got to build the system around those two factors, because that is their bread and butter. But almost 90%, 95% of the type of services that we deliver are either point to point or fixed route. All of them are.
Right.
You know, whether it's water main cuts, whether it's snow removal, bus routes, it's all done the same way. The widget of how they do it is just different. So.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence. I know. Well, Brenda, I'm going to turn to you. I know you've talked a little bit, and don't give away too much of your hand because the city manager's listening. And then we'll look and see if we have any questions from the audience. So big picture, Brenda, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, the goal is we're in the process of converting to a full-scale operation, right? Then we'll have that, pardon me, that repeated data day after day on every route that will give me the opportunity to fix the routes. I'll put it that way, is just fix the routes. And so that way we can get them good and balanced, and get them down to where we're at an appropriate size on each of them, understanding the circumstances that each unique route has. And having the data will help us get there. So that's the big picture. Ultimately, we want to use this to be able to integrate with any people that are interacting with our customers. So whether that's our utility company that is setting people up for service, or if that's our 311 system that is, taking calls, we ultimately want them to have this tool available to them. So that's the big picture. I will be breaking ground We've got no other departments that are using any kind of and I'll just say an ADL system, anywhere. So us being able to get good quality data and show the wins of having this data will be really beneficial. I know our city manager likes data, and sometimes it's just hard to pony up the money to get the systems to get that data, but this is a great way to be able to answer all those questions. It's just little short-term things. I mean, it changes the complexion of the conversations you have with customers when you go, well, hang on a second, let me pull the GPS system up and see what truck was in that area. Or, if we had somebody working there and were we even in that alley to cause that damage on that day? It just changes the whole complexion of your interactions because we get blamed for everything. We're the only ones that are consistently in the alley. So right now we take the brunt of the thing. And I'm like, we don't even know if we were there or not. So being able to answer those questions consistently day after day, there's a lot of fences, there's a lot of gas meters, there's a lot of sprinkler boxes, there's a lot of water mains. There's a lot of those types of things that we pick up the tab for. That I don't think we're going to have to necessarily pick up the tab for. So that big picture is taking those monies that we're spending and finding a way to repurpose them into this utility and get back to the employees that work their tail off every day for this community.
Yeah. If we are to listen to our residents, the garbage truck is the bane of our existence. They're tearing everything up.
Yep.
All right. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to have a one-on-one with the two of you, but let's just see if there are any questions that we can take from the audience, anything in the chat here.
Yeah. I saw a couple pop up, Fred, off the top of my head. I saw one that was asking, does using the technology make it easier to staff up or down during business periods? Yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Because you can get your resources where you need them.
And let's see, what kind of benchmarking activities have you used to track progress around customer satisfaction over time? You want to take that, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things that we look at. We look at what types of calls they are. Are they calls of misses? Are they calls of service? So we really break down what type of call that it is. Sometimes people call in, say, hey, can I have a service? So that's not necessarily a bad call. So that's the first thing. We break down type. And then we try to break down how long it takes us to resolve the issue. So based on the type of request that it is, how long does it take to resolve the issue? And then the third thing we look at is, was the citizen through after every call they receive, either if they've done it electronically, they'll receive an electronic survey that they can fill out for that particular call. So that information is gathered. So the benchmarks that we've been able to find is like a missed trash, those are handled within 24 hours. If someone says we missed their service, we get that done within 24 hours. If someone is requesting a service, depending on the type of service that's requested, it's between 24 to 48 hours. And we look at things like, we do dead animal collection here. So if someone's dog expires, we'll actually collect that dog for them. We generally get those done within 24 hours. If somebody has illegal dumpings, we generally get those done within 24 to 48 hours that illegal dumping is collected. So we create those benchmarks of time. And when we meet those benchmarks or we meet those times, satisfaction stays high, right? People are okay with that. That seems to be our little sweet spot of where that is. Obviously, when we don't hit it, it becomes a problem. So we look at things that prevent us from hitting it. It could be equipment that's down. So that's why having Rubicon reporting back truck information on a daily basis and keeping record of what's going on with that truck is important, because preventative maintenance is critical to keeping trucks up. Sometimes, because we do have inclement weather in Kansas City, that we might suspend trash collection because we got to plow snow because it's a very bad snowstorm. We lose no matter what that's going to be. We also have the converse. We might have a windstorm that comes and damages a lot of limbs. So we're going around picking up limbs, and we might suspend bulky collection because we have to go out and use those trucks to collect limbs. So, but we know when we have those anomalies, we know that that's the cause of it, and it's not something that we've done from an operation perspective. So, yeah, so we have some very huge benchmarks to keep up, and satisfaction levels we'd like to keep it at.
All right, last question, and then we will wrap. But do you envision a future where all of what you've talked about, you have eyes on the street, the technology, all this data coming in? Do you envision a future where, when you receive that phone call that you miss me, and it's not a legitimate miss, you actually were there, do you envision that there will come a time where you don't return to perform that service?
No, because I'm all about service. So it's not a point of being right or wrong. It's really more so a point about quality assurances. Did we do what we said we're going to do? We have the pictures, we have everything to show that we were there and it wasn't out. But I can say, Mr. Hannon, listen, okay, no issue. We'll be there to pick it up, but we were there and your trash wasn't out. And I'll send you a photograph to show you wasn't there, but we're going to pick it up because we provide that great service. So next time you call, be transparent to us. That's the way that I would be handling that situation.
Yeah, it just reframes the conversation that you have with the customers. It gives you the ability to say, we absolutely know that we were there. And, we can put you on our frequent flyer list, and we can make sure to document all of this going forward. We work for these customers, right? So it doesn't do us a lot of good to say, yeah, too bad, get your trash can out at the right time, and it's your problem, not ours. Because that's kind of a career limiting move for us. But, it does give us the ability to kind of reframe and we can reestablish a time frame for that. Listen, we did come down. We got you taken care of today. If I've got the resources available later today, I'll send somebody back through, or we can come back through tomorrow. But, it changes the conversation that you have. And it also, some of those customers are a little more reserved the next time they call back when you can lean on that data.
Right.
Yeah, and I was going to say that was the big thing. We've been using it for a few years, and I've seen, like, on our bulky item collection, complaints we might get one or two, maybe 5 in a week out of 700 collections. We might get 5 complaints, and they're not, oh, you missed me. It's like, hey, I forgot. Can you help me? That it's a different conversation today than it was 3 or 4 years ago. So.
Gotcha. All right. I am watching the clock to be mindful of your time. I do appreciate you joining me today. When we were talking about the length and an hour, I knew the three of us would have no problem filling an hour. We could just talk for another hour and, get it all done. But for those participants, I want to thank you for joining us today. Michael, closing remarks, anything that we didn't touch on, anything you want to share with those that are listening? I'll open the floor to you.
I would say that, customer satisfaction and customer service is what we do. We get paid to provide this customer service. And so not doing is not an option. And it's not about, it's not just about providing the service, but providing a high quality service, a very intentional service. And so are we always going to get it right? Absolutely not. But we have found a solution that helps us reduce our challenges in a very significant way, and reframe, and Brenda said it beautifully, reframe the conversation about the quality of service that we provide. And now it gives us the opportunity to say, okay, if you don't like it this way, how else would you like it? Now we have data to support any kind of change that's going to be required in order to escalate or improve satisfaction. And so we're in a different space in terms of conversation related to customer service because we have the ability to understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, when we're doing it, and to what quality we're doing it, and meeting the customers' expectations. And they change all the time, by the way, Brett. Their expectations change frequently.
Well, I have not been in the waste industry nearly as long as the two of you. It still boggles my mind that I hear this, that people call and complain about their trash. I did not realize how important it was to most people. All I know is I put it out in the morning, and when I come home in the evening, I want it gone. But you all are operating, you're on the ground. It's a different world, and it's enlightening to me on a daily basis, just what you all are dealing with. Brenda, if I can give you the opportunity to give any closing remarks or cover on anything you'd like, the floor is yours.
I think Michael put a nice little bow on the external customers, and we kind of alluded to it earlier in this conversation. You've got your internal customers too. Your team is going to see this great level of satisfaction, and they people that do this work are very prideful. They're also very competitive. So if they can show how they can one up their coworker and they've got the data to support it, it's another win. It takes, gives them another way of saying, look at the job I did. Look at how good a work I did. Nobody's called in on my route. I saved, I saved the city time and money because I was able to identify this was going on. So don't lose sight of the benefit to your internal customers. This just gives them something, really to kind of hang their hat on. They're not always, we just have to own an issue. It's like, I don't have any, before the system, I didn't have any way to defend myself. Now with the system, I got a little bit of defense. And so that's just a feather in the cap for our team. And so they know that they're not always being blamed. They're not being accused. Hey, we know you went by little Mrs. Smith's house and serviced her, but she's, they refilled the container. Can you swing back through there and take care of it for them when you get done with the rest of your routes? And so it just, again, we get to reframe the internal conversations too. And it empowers your employees to really take a different level of ownership of their routes and what they do on a day in and day out basis. So it's a win all the way around.
Well said. Well, thank you once again. Thank you both for joining. I've enjoyed the conversation. Like I said, we could go another hour, but I know the two of you have got work to do and our participants here as well. I hope it was beneficial for those of you that joined, logged in today. As I said, it's been a pleasure talking to Brenda and Michael. So once again, Brenda Haney, Solid Waste Director with the City of Lubbock, Texas, and Michael Shaw, Director of Public Works for the City of Kansas City, Missouri. Thank you both for your time today, your insights. It was a pleasure. All right, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.